Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. A new year means we're now into the home stretch of France's presidential election campaign. And with us to talk about a campaign which will certainly be different from all others, what with the outgoing president throwing in the towel and deciding not to run, is National Front Regional Councillor Émeric Merlot, who represents the Pays de Loire region. That's
exactly
south of region. Paris. Yeah.
West of Paris.
Southwest of Paris, yes, exactly. From the center-right Les Républicains party, Bruno Bernard, deputy chief of staff for the mayor of the capital's 9th arrondissement district, high school teacher Christophe Brunel, campaigning for Emmanuel Macron, who's running as an independent. He was economy minister under François Hollande, and Clémence Pen, digital strategist for Paris as socialist mayor, and Hidalgo. Before the break, Clémence telling us how there was it was unclear. There were so many upsets that it's difficult to read polls. Well, on that point, France, one of France's leading newspapers, is hitting the pause button. Le Parisien, which is distributed nationally as Aujourd'hui en France, its editor-in-chief saying the media's come under a lot of criticism for being cut off from reality. Stéphane Albouy saying we're going to prioritize actual reporting. It will cost more than commissioning polls, and it will make us work harder. Those were the words he used. Let me ask you your opinion on this, Clémence Pen, because if polls are to be thrown out the window, now just 24 hours ago, we had a debate where one of the panelists was talking about how, well, polls are being replaced by something called data mining. Is that something that all the candidates are doing? That is to say, well, going into our own personal history, figuring out what people are doing on Facebook, what their consumer habits are, and that's replacing the polls?
So if the candidates are not doing it right now, they will be during the next year.
During the next year, because hold on, the election's in May. They're going to be doing.
Okay, yeah, in 2017. So what you just described is a very American context, but in France, like, we don't go through the Facebook database or these kind of things. That being said, there are many very easy and efficient ways to build a database where you have a lot of very useful information about voters, who is following you, who is willing to get more involved, who is willing to knock on doors, who has knocked on doors before, what doors is responding positively or negatively, and everything. And if you stock and qualify all this data, it's even more precise and useful for election day than just a poll.
More precise, more useful than the election day polls. These data mining companies, though, I know those American data mining companies are already working with French intelligence. Could they also be working with some of the candidates? When you see that one of them, Mike Thiel, is the head of one of those big companies, is now very close to Donald Trump.
Well, actually, French candidates are usually poor. So until now, the French campaign, even the biggest, haven't worked with big commercial database companies.
Well, they've used Nation Builder during the Les Républicains primary a lot.
So they use this to be able to case a little bit where are the areas to go and this sort of thing. So you heard Clémence there saying how the French don't have the kind of means that American candidates do.
True, but they're coming around. They're coming around. I mean, the last primary saw a massive use of Twitter, of Facebook, of videos on YouTube, and also these softwares, you know, Nation Builder or others. The thing is that I don't think that Fillon was, for example, very much involved in that, and he kept it very, you know, he had a very low-tech campaign and still managed to win nearly 70% of the votes. So, you know, we shouldn't get too much ahead of ourselves with these technological advancements.
But here's the point. In her New Year's address this Wednesday, Marine Le Pen, touting her social networking team, she really praised it. She mentioned it openly. She's called it her channel, as she put it, that's complimentary, she said, to the press. And we all recall back in November, on the heels of Donald Trump's win, her influential niece, Marion Maréchal Le Pen, tweeted in English to reach out to Trump's campaign manager, Steve Bannon, who is the former head of the alt-right news website Breitbart. Is there cooperation going on, Émeric, between the Le Pen digital campaign strategy team and the Trump people? Are they helping each other out?
No, I don't think so. But it's true that the Front National is very strong on social media because first we have younger voters. So obviously they use more social media than the retired people, which are the voters who actually elected François Fillon at the primaries. So.
Yeah, right. But putting out tweets as what Bruno described, that's easy. What I'm talking about more is gathering information, knowing where to target voters, this kind of strategy.
I think we just talk to the people who want to hear us. And I think at the moment, France is very, very interested in politics because we know that there is huge things at stake and that the future of the country will be decided on the next presidential election. So I don't think we must adapt ourselves to the people, but we try to have a wide message that will be understood by everybody. And obviously, social media are a way to talk with people. As, for instance, as I am an elected person, I can talk with my voters in my area, in Saumur, in Angers, without any problems and without any filter.
But not
so
to
I think
retired
it's the best.
pensioners. But not to pensioners, for example.
To pension? Sorry.
To pensioners, to old people.
Oh yeah, no, obviously because there's other way. I mean, it's a national election, so we must to talk to. I think there is a generation gap here, and the voters are not acting the same way if they're young or if they're retired. Obviously, because there is such a huge numerical fracture in France, which is also one of the main subjects that will put through the campaign. For instance, between the countryside and big cities, and the voters are not only connected. There are huge gaps of access to internet, for instance, in France. I come from a region where you pay the same as in Paris, but you don't have the same facilities. So we're trying to. This is a big issue as well, and I don't think
the same penetration of the internet isn't the same all over France, and that is a big issue. There isn't as much access to high-speed debit, for instance, as there is in other countries. I got to ask you, because in part one of our discussion, we were talking about which candidate is the Trump of this election. Which candidate do you think has the favor of Vladimir Putin? After all, both Marine Le Pen and François Fillon are close to Putin or have said positive things about him.
To be honest, I really think it's a media question. I think the French people don't care about it at all. Like it's not what will change their daily life, you know. And at the moment, we are talking about people, forgotten people, by public policies, and they want things to be changed, to be done, so that their daily life will be better. And I don't think they actually care about Putin or Donald Trump. Obviously, we have to have an international strategy, and I think it's clear. I think we want to renegotiate, as I said, with the European Union to have new treaties. I think obviously we are trying to avoid. With
the head of German intelligence, domestic intelligence, recently warned that we could see the Russians intervening in the French and the German elections, which take place in September of this year, in the same way that they're accused of trying to tamper in the U.S. election.
Well, we can see that there is an atmosphere of Cold War here, and intelligence army of each country are saying, "Oh, be careful, be careful." I don't think there will be any impact on that.
Christophe Brunel, do you agree?
I'm quite sure that Emmanuel Macron will not be accused of being too close to Vladimir Putin.
But do you agree that this is all overblown and that this won't be a factor? Putin and Trump and all this. What matters more is just simply
the situation of the country. Yes, of course. But let's be honest in saying that for French people, the international situation is also important. It's not as important as other national topics, but of course, for French people, the ties between François Fillon and Vladimir Putin is something they.
What ties? I mean, he's just said that we need to talk to Putin as any other heads of state. So what are these ties you're talking about?
Let's be honest, saying that during the primaries, Vladimir Putin gave his support to François Fillon.
But I'd be more concerned about the ties between François Fillon and Qatar, for instance, or with those clients that we don't know who actually paid him for his consultant
What
firm.
consultants? Who are you talking about? Are you
2F Conseil, which is a firm he actually created just before being elected as a deputy.
well,
And he
I
earns
mean, do you have
500.
any proofs? Do you have anything to say
Read the
about
press. Come on, it's on the media. The Canard enchaîné said it was
that? Oh, okay.
500 thousands who were
about
earned
those
by
4,
François
what
Fillon.
about those
but
4
he
millions
doesn't-
that Marine Le Pen owes and is claimed by the Russian insurance agency?
sorry?
What about
Maybe
the
focus
4
on
million
the-
euros?
4 million euro.
Yeah, a loan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a public loan. It's all the big.
So why is Russia asking Marine Le Pen to give it back?
Because there is, as it said at the same time in maybe the same article you would have read it. It's simple. We're going to pay back this loan on September 2019, as it was
And where's that money coming from?
from a bank.
May we focus
bank?
on the situation
From
of
which-
French people?
The situation of French people, just on that point, we had, and the situation of French people is going to be another decision that comes up, by the way. We were talking about in part one, the primaries of the center right back in November, the next big rendezvous on the road to the first round in late April. Coming up very soon, primaries of the center left with the first round on Sunday, January the 22nd, and the runoff the following Sunday, January the 29th. The front runner, new former prime minister, the now former prime minister, Manuel Valls, who hails from the more, I should say, social democrat wing of the Socialist Party, and who has a few weeks now still to court voters that are more to the left.
I reject the vast purge François Fillon is preparing, a drastic reduction in the number of public sector workers and fewer public services.
Clémence Pen, I got to say, there isn't that much chatter yet. Is it because it was the holiday period or something? But there isn't this big enthusiasm for these primaries of the center left this time.
There is on Twitter, on social media.
There is. And what do you learn from it? What have you been able to when you read the tea leaves? What do they tell you?
Well, I'd say that what's interesting and complex on the on the socialist primary situation is that we have all the candidates are young. They all have like campaign staff, very well trained. They all come from the same school. So, I mean, the campaign school. So it's hard from a campaign point of view to see like real gaps or oppositions on the way that they would present themselves.
You make it sound like they're a bit formatted. They all have a bit. Are they all spin doctored to death?
Well, they're like at least 3 of them are from the new Socialist Party,
which is more of the left of the party. Yeah.
So they like in the previous election cycles, they have team up, and so like the people working for them and the campaign staff, they all have like the same way to run a campaign, I guess. So that makes a big difference compared to Juppé and Fillon that had like very different political cultures.
Very different political culture. So it's going to be a different kind of debate that we're going to see. It's going to be short but intense, and we may see we may see perhaps if you believe the polls, the socialist candidate who could fall to 4th or even 5th place in the first round of the presidential election. There's Emmanuel Macron that we talked about. There's also, we haven't talked about him, the candidate that's backed by the communists, the party of the left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. So that would mean we could see the possibility of the socialists relegated to 5th place. Is that going to happen?
We're going to say the socialist candidate will be the real outsider. That's like one asset.
he'll be he or she will be the real outsider, because there is a woman there who's is in the running there, will be the real outsider. What does this mean though for French politics? And I'll put it to you, because since you're neither with the left or the right, I suppose, in this. Since 1958, the battle lines have been pretty clear in France. Why is it so muddled this time around?
It's because one of the independent candidates, Emmanuel Macron, is stronger than expected at the moment. He's situated between.
But it's not just Emmanuel Macron. There's also,
but
there's Marine Le Pen. There's Mélenchon. Why are the socialists so far down the ladder?
Something quite logical after 5 years of power for François Hollande and Emmanuel Macron. Yes, of course, he was minister, but he resigned last year. And he was not a member of the Socialist, and he is not a member of the Socialist Party. And he wants to, his only goal is to create unity between French people without the consideration of political parties.
Is that message going to carry when we saw the protests against his labor reform bill? There's a real sense that in France, it's tough to reform, and also that there's this divide between Paris and the rest of the country.
Yes, but it's like in other countries. If you compare the situation with the UK, it's just the same. You have a divide between London and the rest of the country. It's not tough to reform. It's tough to explain people what you want to do, and you have to be a sort of teacher to explain why you want to do this, how long it's going to take, and what can lead after the reform. So it's just a question of explanations, and you have to focus on some reforms that are really important for people's everyday life.
Top of the list?
I would say the economy. We have to be more flexible in terms of economy, and it's what Emmanuel Macron wanted to do.
We have to be more flexible,
minister.
but we saw the big demonstrations, the trade unions who rallied against it, students were against it as well.
Yes, but it's
making the workforce more flexible has been anathema to many people.
Yes, that's true, but the leader of the person who was in charge of this reform was Myriam El Khomri. And Emmanuel Macron was not in charge of this reform.
The labor minister. But, I mean, these were not big reforms, right? And still, things like letting shops being able to open on a Sunday, people are against it. The French like their welfare state.
Yeah, but it's something you have to consider that people want modernity, and the fact that shops are open on Sundays, it's something positive.
And is that a big problem for François Fillon now? Because he has said he wants to slash the civil service. And again, the welfare state, there was a time when the National Front, for instance, was all for that. That's changed. They're closer to...
Jean-Luc Mélenchon, on that one.
Oh, come on.
Well, yeah, you are. But that's fine. I mean, I think we agree, everyone in France agrees that the welfare state needs to be reformed. Main problem is how to do it. François Fillon considered that a radical approach is needed. His competitors do not agree. I think that was the mandate that was given to Nicolas Sarkozy in 2007. He didn't deliver, and I think that François Fillon will.
And why will he deliver? He was his prime minister for those 5 years. Why will he deliver?
Well, I think he'll have all the power at his disposal. Now, I think that things have changed since 2007. I mean, the financial crisis in 2008 happened. Now we've had 5 years of socialist presidency. It's now or never.
Clémence Pen, this whole issue of reforming the workplace in France, it's torn apart the socialists, and that's part of the main reason why they're so divided. You talk about the new left and all of this. It's mainly over this issue, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can speak for the Socialist Party, but one thing we haven't discussed yet is how the new voters will make their choice, and the fact that we have plus 100% or more than this new electors coming to the polls.
Is that now because, all right, in France, voters realize, this is important, in France, voters realize that the presidential election is the big one. There are elections every year for all kinds of things, but the presidential election is the big one. Is this increase in people registering to vote before that December 31st deadline, is it above average or is it par for the course?
Oh, no, it's much more. It's
Much
more
more.
than during the last election year.
And what does that tell you?
That there will be new surprises, and that we cannot count on and think on the like socialist chapter and Républicain and everything, and it's probably millennials, unpredictable voters, and probably a lot of electoral behavior surprising.
In the US, the millennial voters who turned out less than older people, traditionally, it's been the case in France, right? What's going to be different if they do turn out to vote, though?
If they do, they will be more influenced by social media, by YouTube videos, by new ways of information, which might be a good thing for instance, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, which is a very famous YouTuber. And it might be good for younger candidates that are more active on direct videos on Facebook, or for the Front National, actually, because it's true that they have been like very, very well invested online
All right,
for years.
the battle for the French presidency will be playing out on social media. I want to thank you for that, Clémence Penn. I want to thank as well Émeric Merlot, Christophe Brunel, Bruno Bernard. Speaking of social media, a certain James Creedon joins us now. It's Media Watch time. Hello, James.
Hi, François.
We just heard Clémence Penn say, expect the unexpected when it comes to this election.
That's right. Who knows what is going to happen? Let's get ready, I suppose. Let's start with, I just want to have a look at headlines as I found them today on the French election, snapshot of what is online today. This is an article that dates from a couple of days ago, but it's still being shared online on our own website. France, Germany and the Netherlands, the elections that could derail the EU in 2017. So I think that if we're to take a step back, this is how people outside of France and outside of Europe are looking at what's going to happen.
We didn't mention Geert Wilders, the far-right leader, who could win in March in the Netherlands.
That's right. And how would that play into the French election? How would the Brexit negotiations play into the French election? All of that will be factored in, of course. So a long 5 months in the run-up to voting here in France. Now, just to start with the National Front, Marine Le Pen gave her New Year wishes 2 days ago, I believe. And
yeah.
In any case, no detail is left by accident in these sort of videos, I think it's safe to say. So there's an image on the top left here, which is not there by accident, I think we can all agree. And that is actually, if you zoom out, it's Cardinal Richelieu, who was essentially Minister of the Interior for Louis XIII. And this is at the siege of La Rochelle, where he said, I'm going to cut off the head of the dragon, because La Rochelle was resisting, I guess, centralized authority. And many would see Richelieu as embodying a spirit of sacrifice, for sacrificing your private life for the state, etc., etc. So clearly there was a subliminal message there, and it has been picked up by France TV Info's website.
Okay, but Richelieu, not a good guy in French history, especially because people remember the Three Musketeers, and the King's Guard was always against Richelieu's men.
And he's famously Catholic.
Oh, that was in the book. No, Richelieu was actually one of the probably the most important person in our history, in the way that he really ruled the country for itself, and he had almost all the powers in his hand, and he actually managed to do so quite well.
So there you go. That was the symbolism of what that has been a subject of discussion. Now, moving to the upcoming primary, lots of headlines on that as well. For example, Manuel Valls, who would, I suppose, like to see himself as the favourite of the 7 candidates. This headline here is saying that he's being ignored by the Élysée Palace, and he's now left in a position where he's having to sort of suggest that François Hollande is supporting him. This because it is widely understood that Manuel Valls sort of strongly encouraged François Hollande not to seek re-election in the hope that he himself would be the natural candidate to succeed in the primary process.
So plenty of palace intrigue.
That's right. I mean, there's so much to show on this, but 7 candidates in that primary. We'll have to wait and see what happens later this month. It's far from certain that Manuel Valls will be the candidate for the political left. And of course, you have Emmanuel Macron, who is not taking part in the primary process. Lots of speculation about how successful he will be in this process. That headline there says, is he a political prodigy, as I suppose he's trying to intimate, or is he a narcissist drunk on himself? We'll have to wait and see. And Mélenchon, another left-wing candidate, says that Macron is a big bourgeois who knows nothing about life. So, very complicated on the political left, and we have
plenty
about
of
the
time
right.
to sling mud, though, between now and April, so don't worry. Many thanks, James. I want to thank our panel. There you get a snapshot of what it's like on January the 4th. Thank you for being with us. There's more to come here on France 24.